Hi everyone, welcome to the Only Child Talk Show where we talk about our childhood and chasing dreams and all the in-betweens. So today we have a special episode with my two good girlfriends and we're going to be doing a mukbang and a sulbang. And mukbang is where you eat good food and you hear all the ASMR and you talk about the food. We will also be doing sulbang, which is, sul is like drinking in Korean, and we have a lot of different sojus here, so we'll have some fun with that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Okay everyone, we have our guests, Esther and Tracy.
Hello.
They're a little nervous, so we're actually going to take another shot. We took one before, but we're going to take another one and start there. But before that, we also want to explain what food we have in front of us today. We have some Korean food from some local restaurants. Today we have, what's that? That's
Tteokbokki.
tteokbokki. And then we have bossam, which is
like boiled pork.
Yeah.
Broiled pork?
broiled pork.
You dunk it in water. Yeah, boil in water with
Okay. And then there's like kimchi, and then there's like a bunch of other sauces. And then we have, is that just chicken?
fried chicken.
Fried
Yeah,
chicken.
boneless.
순살.
Sunsun살?
And then chicken mu.
Okay, and chicken mu? Yeah, that's the best part.
And then the sauce.
Yes. What kind of sauce is
I think
that?
it's like
Honey mustard?
Dijon honey mustard.
Oh, okay, Dijon honey mustard. And then we have rice. We also have a bunch of different sojus, but we actually chose our own glasses earlier. You guys remember what yours was?
Yeah.
Yes.
This one.
Okay, yay! And we'll take, which one do you guys want to drink from?
Regular?
Regular.
Chinlo's back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shinlo is back? Okay. Are you gonna pour it?
Yeah, I can pour it.
Some of my audience actually don't know anything about soju.
Oh. Okay, well, this is from the Chinlo company. I guess Jinro is back. Yeah, is back.
It's back because it was gone, and now it's back. Right?
It's like
It's like a newer, like a different version.
Why do they call it It's Back?
Just like, you know how
Back
Tomtom
Boys?
has chummy?
Oh.
This is like Jinlo's version of chummy, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we like it because it's the smoothest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We as in like you and your second personality, or like?
Me as in like her, my other friends, like majority of my friends.
Yeah, I think we drink Jinlo's back a lot
Always.
more
We
than
always
other.
pick this
Yeah.
ever since it came
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers.
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 Okay. Boy.
That's actually not bad.
Actually, it's better than the first shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It gets better every time you take a shot.
Yeah, and then it tastes like water, and then you're effed. Well, are you guys hungry?
Yes.
I'm hungry.
Very.
Okay, so this whole time we're just gonna talk and eat. Obviously, do you guys do anything with your chopsticks?
Oh, so when it's like together with this one,
Yeah.
I always like smack it.
Oh, why?
Because
Why do
I
you do
heard that it'll break more even. But honestly, I have no luck with it. Every time mine becomes like,
Oh yeah,
that.
I know.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what is this? Like a weapon?
or you can do like it with someone, and then whoever's side is bigger,
Okay.
that person likes the other person more.
Oh, I see.
I know.
Dang, we should have tried
I
that.
know.
Dang it. I'm hungry, so I'm gonna eat.
We got that mad love. We got that sad love. We got that fun love. We got that young love, yeah, that dumb love.
All of us are Korean, but we're Korean American. And I feel like all of us have had very different experiences growing up Korean American. And I know when we were all I keep hearing is the crunching sound next to me. The crunch. Okay, so growing up Korean American, I know that when we were talking before the show and we were kind of figuring it out, we all had the same theme that we feel like we never really felt totally Korean and we never totally felt American. And I guess for me, when I say American, I still don't know what that means. What does it mean to be American? Like growing up, we were taught in school that America's a melting pot. It's like all these different people coming together and all these cultures, and America's perfect. There's no racial inequality. Like there's nothing like that. It's like perfect. But I don't, growing up now, it's not true. We see lots of disparities and lots of different ways that people are treated by their race. And anyway, so what about you guys? Like, how did you guys grow up and how did you feel being Korean American? Or did you ever feel like, oh, I am Korean, I am different?
My grandparents pretty much raised me, like my brother, my cousins, like just all of the younger kids. And then my dad was like working like all the time. And then my mom was like in and out of Korea because of her like visa issues and stuff like that. So like basically, yeah, like I would say my grandparents were kind of like my parents.
So they lived with you, or was like everyone lived together, and then, or like what was the situation?
So my grandparents lived with me, my brother, and my dad, and then a couple of my cousins. But then when my mom went to Korea, she took my brother with her. So I was kind of like raised by my grandparents, just me, kind of, yeah. So I grew up kind of like learning Korean first in a way because they raised me. But then obviously like when you get in school, you learn English and stuff like that. But I felt like it was kind of hard in a way because in school you're like learning English, right? You're like a little kid. You don't really know, you know, what is what at that time, like what race is and all that. Like you just kind of just learn, you know, in school about everything in the beginning. But then at home, I'm like speaking Korean to my, you know, grandparents and my dad. So it was just kind of like, oh, like I didn't think at the time, like, oh, why am I speaking like two different languages?
Yeah.
But like later on, I think when I got into like middle school, that's when I was just like, oh, you know, I think we're like different, you know? But I don't think I ever experienced like any like racism, I guess you'd say, or like anything that like was like, oh, you're like super different, except for just that I spoke different languages.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I don't know.
I grew up.
I guess, yeah.
I grew up speaking Korean first. That was my first language, and now I cannot speak both very well. I think that just naturally happens, and I know that because I was an only child too. I think I spoke Korean more because I know people with siblings speak English faster. It's just like natural for some reason when you live in America and have like parents who speak Korean at home. But I just spoke Korean the whole time until I got to preschool. My mom said that one day I came back crying, and because I got in trouble. Like I remember that moment. It was really traumatic. I remember calling one of these kids who was in my seat because I went to go put my like, I don't know, tray of all these marbles away, and then I came back and that baby was in my seat. And he was literally a baby. So I'm so heated by just like thinking about it. So I called him a baby because in my mind, my very small like vocabulary, I said baby, you know, I called him a baby and that kid like got mad or something. And so the teacher came over and put me in timeout. And I was so like ogure, like what is that? Like what's ogure in English?
Like
Kind of felt unfair.
wrong.
Yeah, I feel wrong, like
Yeah.
unjustified. And so I remember just like super like mad and crying and angry, but I couldn't express that in any way. So that was when I knew, oh, okay, there's definitely a lack of communication because of the language barriers. But yeah, my mom told me that story and I totally remember that. I remember that day. Yeah. What about you, Tracy?
Well, I'm from Oregon, so it's definitely different from Seattle, and Oregon is primarily Caucasian. So all the Korean people know each other. So everyone knows which Korean restaurant is owned by which Korean family. It's a little different from Seattle. Yeah, Seattle community is small too, but the Korean community in Oregon is like really, really small. So I grew up, like my grandma raised me a lot too because my parents were both working and busy. I don't remember when I was like really young, but I've been told that once I started going to school is when I started using English.
Like
so
preschool?
yeah. So I started with Korean as my first language, and then once I started going to school, I kept using English. And I remember growing up, and my parents would not let me use English at home and they would get mad and I would get in trouble. And at the time I didn't understand why, but now I look back and I'm like, good job. I get it now. Yeah, you know.
Explain more. Like, why do you feel that way at this point?
I think it's because even growing up there, because it's not as Koreanized as here, and I saw other families, even in high school, like the Korean parents would speak Korean to the kid, and then their kid would use English back. And so it was like very weird to me because I have a big family and all my cousins speak Korean to their parents and then back. So when I started seeing that, it just felt like it just felt different, you know? And just because there's so much like honorifics and that kind of stuff, it almost feels like in English you're not being respectful. That's kind of how it sounded like at first. Yeah, because to adults, you know, you always have to use honorifics. So I'm really grateful now because I think if they didn't, you know, 혼내 me or, you know,
Scold you?
yes, I probably wouldn't be as good at Korean as I would now. And I did take like Korean lessons and stuff too, so I can write and read in Korean. Because it was primarily Caucasian though, there was definitely a little bit of racism that I dealt with. It was never bad because I don't know if it's because Oregon is very like hippie and, you know, like democracy and, you know, that even at school, like racism or anything was really not tolerated. Honestly, there was not really that much bullying at our school either.
That's good.
So that's not something I dealt with. Of course, little remarks here and there, like using their fingers to, you know, or like, I don't know, there's like little remarks. Yeah, especially more towards like elementary schools when I felt it. But, you know, like everything has changed and everyone's like, so.
That's true. Interesting. No, it's interesting because for me, I mean, even James, he grew up with his grandma helping a lot too, and like raising him. And I am totally different because my family, it was just my dad and my mom and me who moved to America. Oh, not moved to America. I was born here, but they moved and we didn't have other family. So we didn't have any other support. Like our family, literally all of them are in Korea, even now. So it was very different. So I just had my mom and dad, and then mostly my mom too, because my dad traveled so much. So it was very different. And so that's why we probably have a really strong bond. And even today, James and I went to get the soju at G-Mart, and he was like there was an older Korean lady doing the cash register, and we came back out and he's like, I don't know, when I see like older Korean women, I just like grandmas, it just kind of like makes me feel nice inside. And I was like, oh, that's because you had a really good experience with your grandma. But you know, I don't really have that. I was very detached from my family. So it's really nice to hear like stories like that where you guys had really good family experiences and you guys grew up together, and it's just so much more special.
맛있다. So good.
Should we take a shot? This is the best flavor.
That's what I thought. This is the best too. This is what I was thinking.
Honestly, I don't even know if I like any of the flavors.
I don't like flavor either though.
I don't really like flavor either, but I got it.
I don't think I've
it's so fun.
tried 청포도.
청포도 맛있어. This and jamon, 근데 I drink so much of it in Korea that I'm like,
Oh,
No,
the grapefruit one?
jamon. I whenever I smell it, I gag because
Ooh.
like
You don't like grapefruit?
one time, I was out drinking with like a couple of my friends, and we drank I think we drank like 4 or 5 bottles of jamon each.
Oh my god, each?
I don't know, but like when it first came out, we were like, oh, like flavor soju. Like we don't really have that. We didn't have that kind of stuff
true. It
in
was
Seattle
exciting.
back then.
Yeah.
So like we were drinking, and we were like, oh my god, it's so good. And then I don't know. And then ever since after that night, I was like, I can't drink.
reminds me of
Yeah.
Burnett's. Reminds me of Burnett's.
Oh my gosh, Burnett.
Like peach Burnett's.
What's that?
It's like a vodka, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't
Like very, very low grade vodka.
Oh gosh, like Smirnoff stuff.
It's worse.
Oh. Okay, well, this 청포도 is Korean grapes, and they're so good. So good.
청포도 is really good.
It is really good, and it literally smells smells like the best ever. Okay.
So cute.
Okay. Koreans, like when it's like an adult or someone older giving it to you, isn't there like a tradition like you have to like hold it with 2 hands
Yeah.
and receive it a certain way, and
It's also like yay or like
manners?
manners. Even amongst friends, like you never want to like technically. I think it's more chill on the rules here, but in Korea, like you never want to pour your own thing. It's just like
Someone else
sad
is serving?
almost. Yeah. So no. So if you do, someone will usually like touch your cup for you. Yeah, while you pour it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Or like That's what like one of my friends, they're like, oh, while you're pouring, they're like, cause like they're kind of like saying
Acknowledging,
yeah.
like, interesting. And then when you drink it, you're supposed to like drink it away, right, or something like that. But
I
like,
think when you're with like either like older people or like people, you know, you don't really like know very well, like when
With
for the first
adults,
time.
for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like turn to the side.
As
Yeah,
away
like,
from
yeah.
them as possible.
you know, like cover your don't show them like all the, or it doesn't matter.
I don't think you have to cover it too. It's mostly that you turn away, and I think,
I think I do both though, like
yeah.
I'm just like
I
like that.
I am more like one of those people who's more on the American side. If you want to think about Korean American, I'm more like more American side because it's not that I don't want to use all the, you know, like the Korean, like all the things that is customary for adults and all that, but I think it's easier for me to express who I am with using my American side more, where there's less like stringent rules on how to behave.
Yeah.
But then in Korea, there's so many different rules that you have to like abide by, and if you don't, then you're gonna get like shamed or bullied or like, you know, bottom of the line, and no one's gonna ever like give you a promotion and all these things. It's like so hectic for me, and so like when I meet a Korean person, I just use English more. And instead of Korean, and then I don't really use the honorific yo as much. I just kind of like say let's just be friends and speak to each other in a very casual way. And then I usually tell them my English name, not my Korean name, because that just already separates. Like I'm more American, so I like, you know, that's like a green pass for me to just do kind of whatever I want without the all the nuances.
But it is true. Like, you know, if you're Korean American and you make it apparent, or it's apparent that someone doesn't seem as familiar with Korean culture, then, or seem more American
It's a
side
little
of,
lax. There's less like expectations. for
Right,
you.
right,
And there's less
right.
gossip too.
Yeah.
I think the only reason why I even like ended up knowing that is like, I mean, obviously I took like my first actual sip of alcohol with family, but like first time actually like drinking was with like actual Koreans, like from Korea. I think that's why I kind of learned all that like right when I first started drinking. And then like I also like went to Korea like pretty much every single year up until like college. So like all my family in Korea, like, you know, would always like, you know, drink like that. So I think I kind of just like observed all that throughout the years. So for me now, I think like that's the way, like some of the Korean traditions on like drinking, like that's just like comes naturally for me. I think that because I learned it first like that. But when I was like first learning it, it's like obviously like I don't know any of that. So I was just like, hey, like, okay, let's drink, you know, pour me a shot, you know? And then they were just like, what are you doing?
What am I doing?
But yeah, for sure. I think it's like definitely when you like first drink and you're just like, oh, I'm American, by the way, you're Korean American. It's just like way more chill.
Yes, and you don't have to say your age and like what year you're born. There's so many rules. What about you, Tracy? When's the first time you drank and what do you remember?
Well, I'm kind of similar to Esther. My first sip was with like parents, but it was one sip of beer or something.
How
you know?
old were you when you did that? I have a moment too.
Probably like 16, 17.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I think I was like
or
7.
like maybe once, like one shot of soju or something.
Were you that like around the age too?
Well, I think like when I first took a sip, I was around like it was just like a tiny sip. It wasn't like actually a shot or anything. Maybe like 15, 16. Wow. But then when I actually like first drank with like people, I think it was like 17. But then it's like at the time, like I had no tolerance. You know, it was like my first time basically drinking, so I was just like, I didn't even drink like that much, maybe like 2 shots or something.
And then you're always like,
and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm feeling it, you know. But yeah, I think around that age. Yeah.
My first time drinking was MT in college, and I drank a lot. I just remember. I got drunk, but I think because I think a lot, like you couldn't tell that I was drunk if you didn't.
You're still like that.
But back then it was like my first time drinking, so I felt drunk, but I could remember everything actually. And I remember just going downstairs and going to sleep.
Oh.
And yeah.
Are you still one of those? You just get really sleepy?
Now I don't remember if I'm to the point where I'm sleepy.
Oh no. Yes. That sounds right.
Yeah.
I think my parents used to party a lot. Like they used to love drinking with their friends, and all of our friends and like our church people love to like drink too. So they would go over to their houses and then just drink all the time. And then they would party until like 7 a.m. and then the kids would fall asleep and they wake us up at like 8 and be like, get ready for school. And then we would go to school. Anyway, so eventually I think I was so curious. I was like, can I take a sip? And I think they gave me some beer when I was like 7. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. And it was like really a shocker. But the first time I ever had like hard A was my friend and I went to, I was at my friend's house and her sister had like this, the chocolate liqueur with like the chocolate with the liquor inside.
Oh yeah.
I remember like we ate that and I was like, oh my God, it tastes like nail polish remover. And I was like, oh my God, we just drank. And I was like, it felt like so like cool. And I was like, that's so dumb now, but it did not taste good. So I was like, I don't have a good taste of that, but so funny. Well, thanks for sharing, you guys. Are you guys ready for your shot?
Yes.
Okay, Jan.
So this is tongpodo, right?
Yes,
Yep,
this
Wow,
is this
I don't think
one.
I've ever tried this
Smell
before.
it first.
Well, it smells like actual tongpodo.
Just tastes like
이게
that.
제일 맛있어.
Yeah, this is the best. Why is it so sweet? Oh my God.
I mean, it's not bad, but I just don't think I like quite
Yeah, maybe we
very
should
much.
stick to Jinro's back.
But I mean, it's like it's not bad. It's not
Yeah.
bad. Like it tastes actually like tongpodo, you know.
It doesn't
But-
taste like alcohol.
Yeah.
It just tastes like candy.
Yeah.
Liquid
I
candy.
think I just prefer.
Regular. If you're gonna feel it, you're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I wanted to move into the topic of just growing up with like Korean immigrant parents, because all of our parents have immigrated from Korea, yes? Or are they like, okay. Yeah, so we're considered, because all of you were you born in Korea?
I was born in San Francisco.
Okay, and you were born in Oregon? Okay, I was born in Georgia. So we are considered second generation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I always get confused with the 1.5,
too.
and what is 1.5 again? What is
It's
that?
like when they come like
elementary to middle school.
middle
right?
school-ish
Oh,
or something,
okay.
like 10 or something,
Yeah.
and then like they were born in Korea and like obviously went to school there, but then they came
grew up
here,
here too, at
and then now they're like good at English or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think that's like 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Okay, so our parents are first generation.
Yes.
Okay. So if we have kids, what are our kids?
Third generation,
Third generation?
right?
Yeah.
I mean, one generation.
Yeah,
after.
yeah.
That's so weird. That's so weird. Okay, well, I'm sure we all have our own like parents and their stories of immigrating here, but that's for another day. I'm just kind of curious of like, there's so many pressures that Korean parents and Asian parents in general give on their kids and parents in general, but I feel like Korean parents definitely have a very big expectation for their kids. Like my dad always tells me that I should just go work for the UN. Yeah, like it's that easy,
Yeah,
Dad.
just
Like,
go.
oh yeah, like why not? Yeah, of course. I'm gonna go change the world. Like, I don't think it's that easy. So do you guys have any did your parents ever put like pressure on you or said you need to be a certain way when you guys are growing up, and how is that different now?
I think for me, I did actually have a lot of pressure because my dad was actually trying to be like a doctor in Korea, but he gave that up.
Why?
Because my mom got pregnant with me, and then we moved to like America.
So it's all your fault.
So yeah, no, but like for some time, I really thought like, oh shoot, like because he gave up like what he actually wanted to do, like I need to like do something to like make my parents happy or whatever, because they came like all the way over here like to a foreign country, like they didn't know English or anything when they came, but that's why for like a really long time, like throughout college, my parents were like, oh, like we want you to be, like kind of, I would say kind of typical for most immigrant parents to be like this to their kids, but like a doctor or like
A lawyer or
lawyer, pharmacist. Well, they wanted to be
Yeah.
a pharmacist
Yeah.
and like, just like all those things. So like, yeah, I got into college with, like trying to be like a, biochem degree or whatever, but it's like, if it's not it, it's not it. If like it doesn't match you, it doesn't. And like I couldn't force it, and like it's not like I didn't try in college. Like I really did try, but I just felt like, oh, this is like I'm not having fun. Like like I hate studying biochem for me personally. And then like I think it got to a point where like my parents and I were like fighting a lot at the time because they're like, oh, if you just try, you can do it. Like you know, you have like all these opportunities. Like we came here for you to have these all
the
these
pressure.
opportunities, which obviously is more pressure
Yes, totally.
on, you know, like the kid. But like, I think like finally just like graduating college, you know, with like good grades, with a degree that I was actually interested in, and then finally getting a job, you know, that like is like at a company that, you know, a lot of people know. You know, I think that
With an A.
yeah, so the A. Now they're just kind of like, okay, like, you know,
got
even
your
though
path,
you
you're going-
didn't
yeah.
go to the path that we wanted you to do, like you're still okay right now, and like you're doing, you know, something that like you're interested in, you know, and like you have your own path, and like now I think they're just more like supportive, like do what you actually want to do.
That's good. Yeah.
Because like before they're like, oh, you have to be this to be successful, you know, in order to be successful, have a good life, you know, all that like money. But now they're just like, after me just like making my own path, kind of, they're just kind of like, oh, okay. Like,
Especially because you were the first child too. It's a little different, right? Like
yeah,
there's lots of pressure.
I was the first child of the first son in the family. So my dad's the first son in that family.
yeah, so that's a
and then I'm
big
the first child of his. So
Yeah.
I think that also gave me a lot of pressure. Like, oh, I have to like be a doctor or like a pharmacist or whatever my parents wanted me to be. And it's like, it's not like I didn't try,
Yeah.
but it's like I tried, and then I was just like, I really don't think this is for me. And I'm like more about like, I really want to be like happy and do something I really love doing instead of just doing something just because someone told me to do it, kind of thing. So yeah, it was a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
not gonna lie. But I think going through all those like roadblocks in school and like with my parents and like just figuring out my own path like got me to where I am like right now.
Your parents just want you to be happy and,
Yeah.
and really like what makes you actually joyful. So it's good they hopped on board, because some parents don't. They don't ever get there. They still like bicker and back and forth with you. But yeah. What about you, Tracy? Pressures.
No, actually, for me, I didn't. Mostly it was about just like studying, but even then, they were never like, oh, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, like you should be that. They just asked me what I want to do. I think they were always concerned, and they, you know, were worried about, you know, my success. But they never pushed anything onto me. I think it's because, I don't know, I'm not sure why, but I think when I asked my mom, she said she'd wanted to be a teacher originally, but she had to like, she couldn't do it, I think because she came to America or something like that. I forget what happened, but they never actually put that pressure on me. I think they were always just mostly concerned about, you know, obviously they want me to be successful, and I think now they're more concerned about, they ask, but they've always been like this. They'll always ask, but they always like respect my boundaries, and they just try to get information from me to figure out, you know, like, are you doing okay? Like,
Are you
is this what
doing
you're,
anything? Like,
is this
are
what
you
you're
thinking?
liking? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah,
which
yeah.
area are you trying to go into? Because I really wished I was one of those kids where I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was young, and then, you know, pursue like the whole thing. I know my best friend was like that. But I was always like, I don't really know what I want. Like, everything I do is, it's like okay. There are things that I kind of enjoy, but I don't love it enough to the point where, you
make it
know,
your whole life.
Yeah. And so I think ultimately, though, growing up and like talking to my parents too, like a job is a job. So as long as you don't hate it, I think going into, you know, whatever path that, I guess it takes you is, you know, as long as you're, you know, financially stable and it's not hard for you, I think that's kind of what matters. And my parents never, I don't think my parents really worry, if that makes sense. Yeah, so.
That's good.
Yeah,
Oh, what a friend.
I know.
Pouring the sure.
Never have a glass empty.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
This is why I don't go out with you guys much. Okay, fine. Cheers.
Okay,
Cheers.
Hi everyone, did you enjoy this episode? I hope you did, and if you did, please wait for part 2. There, what's that? Go up there. Yay, part 2.